Hello and welcome to the final part of our look at these vintage Star Wars Marvel comics that were published back in the 70s and 80s. So in this series we're going to be having a look right up to the very last issue, which is 107. We'll look at the Return of the Jedi miniseries, the 4-part miniseries. I've got some droids, I've got some Ewoks ones, and I've also got some foreign language ones, some French, I think maybe some German comics to look at as well. So that will be the focus of today's video. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay, so Return of the Jedi, the 4-issue miniseries. Now, this was adapted. They did a fantastic version of this for the comics, and they did this as a 4-part limited series rather than putting them in the main run of the comic, which by this time was starting to look a bit silly because they were rapidly running out of ideas. So the 4-issue series is actually really good. We've covered this many times because in the videos that we've done, because we've got it reprinted so many times. In the UK, we had this obviously in the Return of the Jedi weekly comic, which was being published at the time, admittedly in black and white and not in colour, which was a shame. But we did have the book adaptation of it. It was in the first Return of the Jedi annual. So it's not like we've not seen this before, but I do believe Marvel did a very good job with the adaptation of this, and quite interesting the way they've done the covers as well, with like different characters on each one. Interesting that unlike Star Wars and Empire, they managed to put the adaptation into just 4 parts rather than 6, but there you go. So that was it, and that came out around the same time as this one, which is the regular monthly Star Wars comic, number 82. So we had to endure just a few more issues of silliness before they started introducing elements that were seen in Return of the Jedi. This is simply because most comic books at this time were planned 6 months ahead of what actually was published. So even though the movie came out, they still took some time for the issues to be written, and then for them to be drawn and then coloured, then sent to the printers, and then to come back again. But from a writer's point of view, I guess they were just mainly delighted that they had Han Solo back to play with. The strips now, because it's on its last legs, is only going to run for another 20 or so issues, up to 107, and then the series is cancelled as Return of the Jedi wanes and the Star Wars phenomenon starts to wane a little bit, which is a shame, but that's how it went. So in these last few stories, although Han Solo is back, he goes back to Tatooine. He faces off against lots of bureaucratic red tape, thieving Jawas, and even Boba Fett, even though he was killed. The series does begin to wander off a bit as the spotlight shifts from character to character, and that's true. Although there are supporting subplots with the characters which do carry on. Some of them are better than others. It's as simple as that. I mean, this one here, absolutely brilliant. Sort of really fits in with the theme of the stories and the characters. See a little IG-88 poking his head out there. 86 here. But they were admittedly struggling a little bit. 87, that's something a bit different, a nice painted cover there. Something a little bit different. The artists on these later ones were Bob McLeod and Brett Lewins, Bill Seisenwich, who was a great artist, Al Williamson again, who started it all, Kerry Gimmel, Ken Stacy, and Walsh Portacio. Darth Vader is dead, long live the new Dark Lord, number 88. 89, so these are far more simplistic, aren't they? And it's a shame that the quality just didn't remain on these, you know. There we are, we got more Mothma there, Admiral Akbar. Quite nice to have these characters, these Jedi introduced characters. Number 91 there, I think Han's back on the Chewbacca's homeworld. number 92. That's a nice painted jacket. That is a Bill Sizenwich jacket, now, if that's how you pronounce his last name. That artist was particularly famous for doing Elektra Assassin, which if you've ever read that, Elektra, which was a Daredevil spin-off character, absolutely fantastic graphic novel, and he has this very distinctive painted artwork style. 93 there, back to a bit more what we're used to. 94, well, what can you say? I mean, this is a low point for me in the series, I'm afraid. I won't bash on about the bloody Ewoks again, but it's the bloody Ewoks, ruining everything. 95, excellent cover of that. So they redeemed themselves. I mean, look, how can this be the same comic? There's no sort of continuation. It's just such a shame that. But from issue 95, the galaxy faces a new threat with the Nagai, a pale-skinned race of fierce warriors. Lumini is revealed to be Shira Bree, an Imperial agent thought slain by Luke a few years earlier. Do you remember when we mentioned that? And they threaten the galaxy. So this battle, this one here, culminates in issue 100, where Han meets the Fen Shea, who's come to the rebellion alongside Han's childhood friend Bay. But Bay has a secret of her own, and it's not one that Han is eager to learn. So there you go. And this worked all the way up to issue 100. Which was obviously a bit of a milestone. There we are. So they did a double-sized issue again, and it got treated to a painted cover. That guy there looks like Khan from the Wrath of Khan. I mean, it is. It's such a rip-off, isn't it? Which sport that, and the likenesses aren't that great. But hey, they pulled their fingers out and made a bit of an effort. Now the last few are probably why the series ended up getting cancelled. I mean, they haven't even put any. That's just like letrasetted on there. But it's just Planet of the Hoojibs. You got Ewoks, just non-decent Star Wars characters basically that are featured in the comic, and it's just basically the print run had already dropped dramatically by this point, and I think come the very final few issues, these last couple are like 20,000 copies a pop, which is not a lot when you think about it. This is the penultimate issue, and then the very final issue, which apparently only had a run of about 10,000 copies, and then it was done, which is not a lot when you think about it. But by then, it was amazing how quickly Star Wars dropped off the radar. We're only looking at 1986. Just like the toys, it just sort of died a death. Boom. And then it was He-Man, Masters of the Universe, Thundercats, Transformers. That was the new toys that were coming in. And that's where it was. But not for all of us, but for some. So whilst this series was coming out, they published 3 annuals. Now the annuals are double-sized. They are actually pretty good, these annuals. And I think they come recommended. So the first one has the main characters involved in a political struggle on the planet of Sky, where Luke learns a bit more about his father. That's the second one. The first one, rather. The second one, which is a cover that was used again in the British Star Wars comics, tells an untold tale of Han Solo as he finds himself caught in a tough situation on Ventuine and inadvertently fulfills an ancient prophecy. But the one that most people remember and rave about is this one, which is the third Star Wars annual. It's set on a planet called Beldrone, a world that secretly constructs assault vehicles for the Empire. We're introduced to a character called Flint, who's a young man who has dreams of a greater life than he currently lives. But when Darth Vader comes to town, Flint has no choice but to join the Empire. Flint eventually returns in the ongoing series as a new Dark Lord. So there you go. So that is the one that comes recommended. Then, what came after Star Wars? Well, we had the Animated Droids and Animated Ewoks series. Now, I've not got all of these because, like all the Droids and Ewoks stuff, I pick it up if it comes my way, but I don't actively go out to find it. So these are very much spin-offs. They were published by Marvel again, but under the Star Comics imprint, which was their junior line. So they did like a junior Spider-Man run. Actually got a John Romita cover, if you can believe it. So what a waste of great talent. But this is the first of the Droids comics. Now these Droids and Ewoks ones are very, very scarce. Although, you know, perhaps the demand isn't there, but I would expect to pay £5 to £10 a copy for any of these. In fact, even more if they're really mint. So I've just got a couple of these, number 4 here. So you see, this is a well-worn copy with writing on the front. But you just, certainly back in the day, you would never come across them because they just didn't sell much. This one has the highlight of having a guest starring Wicket the Ewok. Oh dear. There's another Droids one here, number 6. That has actually got some of the Star Wars characters in, which is at least something, I suppose, isn't it? And then I've got one odd Ewoks one, which is Ewoks number 3, Flight to Danger. And I guess these Droids and Ewoks comics were what were used in the Droids and Ewoks British annuals when they were reprinted over here. Now, as well as those American comics, there were a couple of other spin-offs. This is Marvel again. This is Marvel Age number 10. So Marvel Age was a monthly magazine that Marvel themselves put out, showcasing all the new stuff that was happening in the comics at the time. And I used to absolutely love this. This one's from 1984. So it's probably publicizing a little bit after the Return of the Jedi adaptation. I've kept this one because it was a Star Wars cover. That's Marvel Age. Now I'm going to just pop these to one side because the next thing I have to show you is some of my foreign comics. So this one here, number 7, I can't remember. This isn't French, is it? This is something else. Finland. Blimmin' heck, Finland. Who'd have thought it? So this is a Finnish Star Wars comic. Look at that, printed in Finland in 1982. Well, I never knew I had any Finnish Star Wars products at all. But there you are. So this is just this would have been an adaptation of one of the American comics. Looking at that cover, it's an early one, maybe like number 8 or 9, in a foreign language. And what's this one? Star Wars Special. Oh, this is the same again. Look at that. That's number 7, and this is number 8. But this is much thicker. This is almost twice the size. That's special. And once again, classic Star Wars reprints. No adverts. Look at that. So this is 1983, printed in Finland again. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Same series, number 11. So I thought I had some French ones. I did not realise these were from Finland. Number 11. Number 12. Oh, that's a little bit rougher there with some writing on the front. Number 17. So we recognise some of these. We've seen some of these covers already. These are all the same series. I wonder where I got these from. Number 20. Yeah, there's that one with the probe droid. And number 21. That's a bit rough there, but Junior Press Presents, printed in Finland. 1984, that one, Junior Press. Number 24. There we are. So I think that's all my Finnish ones. Now this is for more. These are the ones I remember having a bit better. These are Titans, and these are the French ones. So this is 10th of May 1981, number 32. Now Titans wasn't exclusively Star Wars. Some of them had Star Wars covers, but they were other properties as well. So this has got the Fantastic Four, Captain Marvel, some early Jack Kirby there, and then Star Wars as well. So I think the only ones I kept were the ones which had Star Wars on the front cover. That's on the inside jacket there. So Titans was basically a Marvel variety comic which had other Marvel properties, which included Star Wars. So the ones which had Star Wars covers on are the ones that I kept. I particularly love this one, which is such a fresh take on that with the dewbacks there, and the hair is fantastic. That real beautiful painted cover, and you just don't see that around. So that's number 38. And I got another one here, number 43. And it says the Journal of Superheroes, various superheroes, number 43. And then I've got an omnibus of some sort. So this is top BD. So BDs are what the French call comics. And this is album number 3, The Complete Saga of Return of the Jedi, and 2010, because Marvel did an adaptation of the movie 2010. So look at this, look. So that's the French 2010 comic. This is like hard, like a hard cover, and the adaptation of Return of the Jedi, which is that one. And they've been wrapped in this cover. They've been bound together and wrapped into one book. How cool is that? So this is the French adaptation of Return of the Jedi. This will probably be exactly the same. Yeah, it's the same artwork. It's just got the French speech balloons. How amazing is that? And then the second half is the French adaptation of the 2010 movie, the follow-up to 2001, which is actually a really underrated movie. So how cool is that? Now, while I was going through these, I thought, well, I might as well cover these now. I've found my collection of Star Wars Galaxy magazines and a couple of other odd Star Wars comics. So I'm just going to pause there. I'm just going to get them in position. I'll be straight back. Okay, so this is one I completely forgot that I actually even owned, and that's Star Wars in 3D. So once the original Marvel comic had finished, the very next publisher to do any Star Wars comics at all was Blackthorne Publishing, and they did, for the 10th anniversary of Star Wars, they did a Star Wars comic in 3D, if you can believe it. And these are incredibly rare, and I believe there is more than one. And I remember looking for a long time to get any more of these, and you just couldn't get them for love nor money. They just weren't around. So I would imagine those are pretty rare. It might be something I might look up to see how rare these are. Look at that Rambo in 3D as well. Would you want it? So yeah, completely forgot about that one. Now, I used to collect, when Star Wars came back and Dark Horse started publishing it, I had them all. You know, there was the Dark Empire series 1 and 2, and then, well, they just went on forever, didn't they? And then the regular Star Wars run. There was just so many offshoots, and in the end, it was just overwhelming. So I just kept the very sort of best of it. One comic that I always loved was this one, Sergio Aragones' Stomp Star Wars. Now, Sergio Aragones, remember we mentioned him in the first video. They actually pastiched him as a character in one of the early Star Wars Marvel comics back in the 70s. But there he is there on the front. Now, he was mainly known as the artist who drew Gru the Wanderer, but he was also massive with Mad Magazine, where he would do the Mad Marginals for many years. So this is his take on Star Wars, and if you've never seen this guy's artwork, he's famous for doing hyper detailed scenes with loads of stuff on. So let's see if we can find one of his classic spreads where he does stacks of detail. I mean, his comic book style is fantastic. So he comes recommended, and he's massively prolific. So he knocks stuff out very quickly. Getting on a bit now. I believe he's in his early 80s. So I guess he doesn't quite produce quite as much, but you get an idea of the sort of artwork style. This is great. If you ever get a chance, give this one a shout and a try. Now, who remembers Star Wars Galaxy magazine? So when we had the shop, this magazine was as hot as anything, and we're looking at fall 1994. So this was amongst some of the very first magazines that relaunched Star Wars big time. So Topps obviously were famous for the Star Wars cards, and they were looking to relaunch the cards. We had Dark Horse publishing brand new comics by this time, and Star Wars was starting to get a bit of momentum after being in the doldrums for all those years. And you know, that sort of period from the late 80s to around 92, 93, when it started to get in a bit of a revival. Well, that's when I earnestly started collecting Star Wars, but people were giving it away. You know, you go to shows and people wouldn't be rating it, but I'd be there buying everything I could get my hands on because I loved it so much. So perhaps that was the dream period, to be picking Star Wars up when nobody wanted it. But Star Wars Galaxy played a major part in reviving Star Wars as a commodity, so it comes highly recommended. Now, number 2 here, I wonder if it's still got it. Yeah. This one came with an X-Files comic, which I believe is quite rare. But these had beautiful painted artwork. So this ties in with the Star Wars Galaxy first and second series trading cards more than anything. So they've got instantly got a wealth of beautiful artwork to call on. And just compare this to some of the comic book artwork we were looking at just now. They came with packs of cards, such as this one. There was like a price guide in here for the toys. It would be, you know, developments within the figures. Absolutely fantastic, to be honest. Book 4 here, and it came out, I think, quarterly. And as issues were coming out, I mean, just in my shop in Plymouth, we'd be ordering like 50-60 copies of every issue, because it would fly out. Copies would absolutely fly off the shelves because it was so good. And there was a nice little historical bit each issue. Obviously the new comics. It was good stuff here, good stuff. And I can't imagine these are that difficult to get a run of today, but you never know, I suppose. Oh, well, look at this. Look, number 5 is a special signed edition. Number 500. Oh, look, that's the regular copy. And that appears to be signed by Greg and Tim Hildebrand, who did the cover artwork. That's quite nice, isn't it? See, I didn't know I had that. I can't see any other differences. That's the regular edition. And then this one has got this, it is the regular edition, just with a sticker on. And then it's the signatures on the bottom there, which I think is Greg and Tim Hildebrand. Oh, that's pretty nice, the cover artist. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Number 6, what a cracking cover that one is. And this is 1996 now, so you're getting on a little bit. As I said, I think they were quarterly originally, this series, and every single one was an event when it came in. We would get, as I said, so many copies of it. Number 7 there. I don't really know how it died out, whether you know, it was something from Lucasfilm, or if Topps Publishing got into trouble, which I think they did. Apart from Star Wars, of course, Topps had the license to the Mars Attacks movies, so they were doing Mars Attacks comics, and their big hit comic, of course, was the X-Files. That was their biggest hit. Number 9 there, Shadows of the Empire. Number 10, 1997. So we're into the time of the special editions now. Al Williamson, coming back to Star Wars after all these years. Number 11. Number 12. And the last one I've got is that one, number 13. And I don't know if that's the very last one they did, or did it change size? I just can't remember. Let's see if there's... No, it says, see you in the next issue when we launch a bigger, bolder new look. Yeah, so I have a funny feeling, although I've not got to my Star Wars magazines yet, my sort of main boxes of Star Wars magazines, of which there's quite a lot to go through, vintage and some more modern stuff. I have a funny feeling that Star Wars Galaxy became larger format. So that's why they're not with these comic book sized ones. They just went more sort of traditional magazine size. So no doubt we will get to cover those in the future. But I just thought I'd throw them in there since they're in with these Star Wars comics now. So there you go, that concludes our look at these vintage American, on the whole, Marvel Star Wars comics. And certainly they are a fantastic, fantastic run, aren't they? So looking forward, I do intend to cover the British Star Wars Weekly, which became Empire Strikes Back Weekly, then Empire Strikes Back Monthly, and then it went into the whole another brand new run of Return of the Jedi Comic Weekly. Now, although I've got them all, a couple of my issues are particularly low grade, and I don't, having looked at them in hindsight for the first time in 20 years, I don't really want to show them just yet. So I'm going to fill in a couple of the gaps, upgrade some of my copies to better ones, and then I shall do that lot in probably another 3 videos, to be honest, because there's even more comics. We're talking best part of 250 to 300 comics in total, which is 3 times what we've covered in these 3 videos. So quite a bit to go through there, as well, of course, because there was plenty of advertising. There's loads of vintage Palatoy adverts in those ones, which I would like to point out as we go through them. So I think they'll make really interesting viewing. Anyway, that's it for today. That's coming up in the future, so do keep an eye out for that. If you have enjoyed today's video, do please give it a thumbs up. If you've not already, do please hit that subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.